You are watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Later on in the show, we will talk to the executive director of an organization called We Are Humanity, Firaaz Azeez, about their programs feeding the hungry. But first, some news headlines. Liberal ministers not to testify on aid to Afghanistan. Former MP's alleged meeting with pro-settler Israeli. 911 operators training to address racial profiling. Babri Mosque demolition, a black day for India. And now the details. A Senate probe is underway as to why Canada will not allow humanitarian workers to provide aid to Afghanistan. The Senate's Human Rights Committee started hearings yesterday on federal anti-terrorism rules that prevent aid groups from supporting the needy in Afghanistan. 3 Liberal cabinet ministers have declined to testify in the Senate, citing conflicting schedules. The Taliban was listed as a terrorist group in Canada in 2013. They seized power in their country last year. Canadian officials have advised aid groups not to buy goods in Afghanistan or pay people, because in Canadian law, this could count as assisting a terrorist group. The National Council of Canadian Muslims, or NCCM, is asking for a clarification after an Israeli media source has mentioned an alleged meeting in 2019 before former Liberal Justice Minister Erwin Kotler and his wife, and James Silberstein, who runs the organization Keep Jerusalem. According to the Israeli source, Kotler promised to promote Israeli ideas and partnerships in the Liberal caucus. Keep Jerusalem is a non-profit, non-partisan organization whose website envisions a united Jerusalem under Israeli sovereignty. NCCM says Silberstein supports illegal Israeli settlements in places like Sheikh Jarrah, which Canada has officially opposed. Kotler now serves as a special envoy on preserving Holocaust remembrance and combating anti-Semitism. A training in Montreal for 911 operators is helping them identify racial bias from people who call in. Rose Andre Habard, the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Advisor of the Montreal Police Service, says to a media source that some callers are racially profiling when they call 911. Habard says the training will help the police intervene based on the actions of the person and not on their identity. In North America, the training is groundbreaking. It was introduced after demands for internal change in the Montreal police. The training will help operators filter out racial stereotypes before dispatching police responses. Today is the 30th anniversary of India's Babri Mosque demolition. Prominent Indian Muslim leaders say that December 6 will forever remain a black day for Indian democracy. 30 years ago, the 16th century Babri Mosque, built under the rule of the first Mughal emperor Babri in Uttar Pradesh, was torn down by Hindu hardliners. They claimed the site was the birthplace of their Lord Ram. In November 2019, India's top court ruled that the historical site of the mosque be handed over to Hindus for the construction of a temple, and a suitable plot be allocated for the construction of a mosque. And that's it for the news. There is a saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, known as a Hadith, that goes like this: anyone who relieves a hardship for a believer in this world, God will relieve one of his or her hardships on the day of resurrection. Firaaz Azeez, the executive director of Humaniti'S, strives to follow this hadith with his organization that is helping to feed the hungry, amongst other things. To talk to us more about this, he joins us now. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure.
It's our pleasure to have you and to learn more about the work that you're doing. Now, we have here on our show title, We Are Humanity, because I think that's such a lovely name. The organization is called Humanity. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that and how it relates to the We Are Humanity phrase?
Sure. Humanity is is a current incarnation of an organization, One Parent Muslim Foundation, which was established about 2016, and it was focused on single moms, providing supports. As we know, many single moms are struggling just with everyday life, and given what is going on in the pandemic. And so, I came on board in 2020, and we expanded the mandate, because the reality of it is that, hunger is something that affects all of us, and all demographics, all genders, all faiths. And so, we are humanity seem to be, people ask me quite often, Sister Kathy, what is humanity? And I say, and I always respond by saying, we are humanity, all of us. We're part of the human fabric, and we all want to leave the place better than we found it.
Oh, that's such a beautiful answer to that question. But I have to ask you about the I at the end instead of the Y. Tell us about that. It looks so cool.
I have to give full credit to the incredible team that does all of our brand and marketing. So I mean that's really about. It seems that you've got so many of you've got the freshie. If you look at branding today, a lot of the brands have something interesting and unique. And so the I really reminds us that each one of us, meaning I being Firaaz, I being Kathy, every one of us is part of humanity, and that. When we think of when we think of hunger, when we think of poverty, food insecurity in Canada, it affects the global community. And, no one's immune to it. Canadians are not immune, and no one's immune. So it's just a reminder that the organization is inclusive, and it really is strengthened by each one of us.
That's really beautiful. I really love that. That's very beautiful. Talk to us then. You said you started out with a focus on, or the organization started out with a focus on helping single mums, and then with the rebranding, and you came on in 2020. Talk to us now about the expanded work that you do.
Yeah, we can spend hours just talking about obviously what the need in the community today. But really, Humanity's focus is really about alleviating, helping the vulnerable, uplifting humanity in all forms and wherever we may find it. And essentially, the organization focuses on a number of areas, food being the most critical, water, healthcare, and education, among others. And when we talk about food, many people speak about the pandemic as though, which is, of course, a significant event in our current context. But the pandemic of COVID is nothing compared to the pandemic of hunger. Hunger and poverty has been around, it seems, since time immemorial. And as Canadians, we know that, the food insecurity rates in Canada are just off the charts. I mean, almost 6 million Canadians on an annual basis access food bank services or are food insecure. And in fact, recent stats tell us that almost 1.5 million Canadians last month access service through a food bank. So, the issue of poverty is one that is pervasive. It's one that is global. And Humanity has had a very strong focus and really trying to provide immediate food interventions right here domestically and as you alluded to earlier, across the globe.
So I saw on your website there's a lovely video where you show people packing food hampers and then going around and just distributing them. So it's real hands-on work.
Yeah, so I mean, there's many elements. If we think about Canada, first of all, I mean, we are Canadian-based NGO, and when we do work here in the city, of course, it's us and our volunteers and our agency. So great community partners on the food side, great community partners on the agency side. So we have been essentially focused on food interventions, emergency food interventions to folks involved in partners include the Toronto District School Board, Toronto Community Housing, and agencies really serving the vulnerable community. So there's an opportunity domestically to, of course, get your hands and your feet wet, so to speak, and actually, pack hot meals and deliver hot meals and, organize grocery items. That's certainly more of the grassroots that we do here in Canada. But of course, as you know, to deal with the issue of poverty is much deeper than that. It requires really moving the needle in terms of policy, right? That is really what's going to make a difference. What we're doing simply is helping to stave off hunger for a day. But when we talk about poverty, Sister Kathy, it really is about an institutionalized approach that we all need to bring. And Humanity is, of course, as well, not only feeding for today, but we're also working on the advocacy and the lobby front with all levels of government and agencies.
So if you were advocating and I was a politician, let's say at one of the levels, you can decide what would be one major policy change that you would think would make a big impact?
Well, I would reiterate what has been said by so many And Humanity, quite frankly, we would be considered a startup in this game. But when we look at, there is the Proof Lab at the University of Toronto, and Dr. Valerie Tarasik speaks, and that's someone you should probably have on the show at some point in time if you haven't already. When it comes to food insecurity, she's considered one of our leading advocates. The reality of it is that we need a livable wage in Canada. We need a livable wage. Feeding someone is one thing, and of course we know there's great words for that, and to help someone is quite fulfilling. And we know from our Muslim traditions, of course, is the importance of feeding our neighbors and feeding the poor. But the reality of it is that the systemic issue that really creates food insecurity is the issue around income. And then from income, of course, you have issues around housing, issues around health, and the list goes on and on and on. So if we don't address the foundation of food insecurity in Canada, which is exactly establishing a livable income, not a minimum income, but a livable income, then we're going to continue to actually perpetuate that fallacy that, if we continue to fund food banks, and I love the role that food banks play, but if you speak to the folks at the University of Toronto in terms of their Proof Lab and the work that they've done, you talk to anybody related to food security, just continuing to put money into food charity is absolutely not moving the needle. Absolutely not moving the needle.
Sort of, some people criticize it as like a Band-Aid solution. It's not stemming the flow. When you use the word livable income, are you referring to the concept of basic income or a guaranteed minimum income that the government would provide a certain amount of money to all citizens below a certain level, like the negative income tax project pilot that was under the Liberal Wing government a few years ago?
Absolutely, man. That's, and that's a start, right? But certainly, yes. I mean, when we look at the stats and we see what those who are struggling with food insecurity, and we know what the pandemic did, right? It pushed so many who are on the fringes of food poverty into poverty. And at the same time, we also have to look at the other side. Whereas during the pandemic, so many, not only Canadians, but so many global citizens fell into poverty and into food security. The wealthiest of our nation and the wealthiest of the world made record profits. I mean, just recently, I'm sure you saw the brouhaha that came when Galen Weston Jr. announced that they're going to hold the prices on the no-name brand stuff, and then of course Loblaws and the Weston Co. just announced incredible like record profits in the time when Canadians were just struggling. These big organizations have really been reporting incredible profits, and those profits sadly are not going to even the workers in those organizations. So I'm speaking to, there's a lot of elements, but certainly at the base of it is we need to have a basic livable income. We also need to look at, obviously, we have a number of already social supports mechanism, both provincially and federally, that really need to be increased and enhanced. So and I'm just to be clear, I'm not versed in this. I'm just simply as someone who operates in this space and understands some of the needs. But so much is being written about this, and not enough attention, I feel, is being brought to bear.
Well, you mentioned that you're a startup and there are a lot of organizations trying to do this. Unfortunately, we run out of time, but we commend you for your work and thank you very much for joining us to talk just a little glimpse of the food security and advocacy that you're doing. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I mean, beyond obviously supporting agencies that are running into difficulties with food security issues and especially emergency food intervention, that's something that we've been doing for quite a while. But we work with organizations. We support organizations that do advocate for and do lobby for the type of systemic changes that we need. And I know we didn't get a chance to talk about Humanity's kind of global presence, but the reality of it is that even though we are based in Canada, a very small percentage of our activities are in Canada. And in fact,
unfortunately, I'm sorry to cut you, but we're out of time. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you so very much, Sister Kathy.
Thank you for watching. If you like what we do, please share, like, and subscribe. Stay safe and God bless.